Dr. Roger Norton, who is our Regional Director for Latin America and the Caribbean at the Borlaug Institute, impressed upon all of us that, it's great that we have all these wonderful experts and experienced professionals in the various sessions, but if we don't hear from people who live this every day, from farmer leaders, then we really will have missed an important voice. So we decided to include a roundtable discussion that would provide us with that insight. So let me call to the podium, or to the stage, Dr. Roger Norton, our Regional Director for Latin America and the Caribbean, and the panelists, Dr. Oscar Castaneda, Vice President of the Americas Program for Heifer International, and if you will take a seat, Oscar. Ingeniero Sergio Alonzo, who is Regional Coordinator for Plant Breeding Programs in Mesoamerica for ASOCUCH, the Asociación de Organizaciones de los Cuchumatanes in Guatemala, and Ingeniero Edgar Jerónimo Lemus, Manager of ASORECH, Asociación Regional Campesina Chorti de Guatemala, y el señor José Omar Rodríguez, Manager de Capucas en Honduras. Así que ayúdame, help me to welcome these gentlemen this morning.
Well, good morning, everyone, again, and thank you for participating with us in all of these sessions. As Dr. Morano said, we have a very special group this morning and a unique opportunity to hear perspectives from people who face these issues on a daily basis, and really how it is on the ground and what works for them and what their obstacles are, and what they would look for in terms of external cooperation. It's very important to have their insights into this. So I'm very delighted to have this panel. We will start with Dr. Oscar Castaneda, who is the Vice President for Heifer International, and he has actually coordinated many of these programs and worked with some of these gentlemen also. So he will give his insights to start with. Thank you, Oscar.
Good morning. Buenos días. Howdy. I have to practice again. Howdy. Howdy. It's a great opportunity to be here and to present today the voice of the farmers. The voice of the group that actually is then representative of those communities that we have been talking about yesterday. And one aspect that is important to bear in mind, that in many cases we consider them the target population. We consider them to be those that are affected by the situation. And we forget very often that they are agents of change. They are not any longer in a situation that everything has to be dropped on them, but they have been working very hard on creating the right conditions to bring change about. And that's what I would like to bring a little bit of the perspective on what things can be done. And since we are going to be limited by time, I'm going to go directly to a couple of ideas that we have been discussing. If we were about to decide where to invest, what are we proposing to do? And allow me only to briefly introduce Heifer to you. Heifer is an organization that is very much known here in the United States by the fact that the founder went to Spain and he was providing milk to long lines of people after the Civil War in Spain. And he realized that the lines were getting not shorter, but longer every day. And the same people that were coming one day were showing up the following day. So he came to the realization of a revolutionary idea. What about a cow instead of a cup of milk? And that began a change in perspective with the idea of connecting people from the United States to people in Spain, to people in Korea, in Japan, in Germany, and many different places in Europe where the cattle were completely either decimated or long gone. And that happened in 1944. And from that moment on, the potential of creating those long long-term relationships between people have increased. And the other revolutionary idea was that everybody receiving a gift was responsible to pay that gift not back, but forward. And that changed the dynamic of the conversations. So that's the main idea. And a lot of information, a lot of figures that you are going to forget in a second. Places where we work, the intention is to show that we have a presence in 27 countries around the world. And in Central America, we have presence in Honduras, Guatemala, and that presence in those countries have been for a long time. We are the type of organization that is not working one project at a time, but we have long-term relations in those places because the idea is that in order to build social capital and have successful processes, you have to go for the long road. You have to go for the long walk and be willing to walk along. And the main programs that we entertain in Central America, one is called Promesa. And Promesa stands for, in Spanish, for Programa de Mejoramiento Económico, Seguridad Alimentaria. And in that idea is repeated in the other programs. Ganasol is ganadería, agricultura sostenible en laderas. San Seco is the work in the dry corridor, seguridad alimentaria y nutricional in the dry corridor. These three components are aimed to work with the communities that are most affected by climate change, that are located in places where development is a challenge, but also where they have very creative, innovative ideas that mainly are helping them connect farmers all the way to markets. And that is a longer conversation that the time doesn't allow. That's the main idea, the connection from social capital all the way to the market. What we would like to propose, and that's the slide at the end of the presentation, what we would like to propose as part of the ongoing conversation that began yesterday is the consideration of expanding the focus of this discussion, the analysis and action plan on immigration, from an end-to-end type of analysis. It's not only about looking at the places that are expelling family members, but also the places where they go. And all the rationale that happen from end to end, and the possibilities of unleashing economic and social potential that are created by this social process that needs to be done in an integrated, multi-level type of discussion and analysis. The type of investments that are under discussion, we are proposing to look into new territories beyond the Western Highlands, beyond the places, for instance, where Feed the Future has focused so far, and expanding the analysis because there is not only need, but also opportunities outside of those places. Different crops that are high value, that can provide transformations in those communities beyond coffee, cocoa, cardamom, spices, are the type of commodities that will help farmers to bring additional income and create social transformation in their communities. Bear in mind, and I would like to echo what was the whole concept that Dr. Pamela Anderson spent a lot of time yesterday, is the new actors, especially women, youth, and children. Those actors that are very much the vulnerable population, but also those that can create the social transformation that is important right now in those places. And the triple bottom line should be good for the farmers, the creation of profitable business that are farmer-owned and operated. That's the emphasis. The inclusiveness needs to begin at the moment that those businesses are set up and managed. And the main contribution that this roundtable brings is the voices of the sector that was not represented yesterday, that is the NGO. And the NGO is defined by two negations. It's non-profit, it's non-governmental, but at the same time, the affirmative element in this sector is the fact that we are able to connect social capital development with income-generating activities that are good for the farmers, are excellent for profitable activities, and at the same time is fantastic for the environment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Oscar. Muchas gracias. Now we'll call on Edgar Lemus.
Buenos días a todos. Gracias a los organizadores por invitarnos a este evento y hacernos partícipes de este proceso.
Thank you all for inviting us to this event.
¿Estás so cuch now?
Perdón.
Y el otro. Le toca a él.
Okay. Okay. Bueno, perdón. It's in another order, so we're going to switch the order of presenters.
Oh.
Okay, here we go. Okay. Here we go.
Okay. That's it. Gracias. Me disculpo por no hablar inglés, les prometo que para la próxima lo vamos a hacer en inglés.
He said,
He's
excuse me for not-
apologizing for not speaking English, but he promises next time he will.
Bueno, gracias por invitarnos a esto, a hacernos parte de este proceso. Gracias a los organizadores.
Thank you to everyone for inviting us for this process.
Azorech es una organización de segundo nivel, está integrada por 7 organizaciones de base, conformado por alrededor de 6,000 familias. Tenemos 15 años de experiencia.
They have 7 years of experience, 15 years of experience. They have 7 units, and Azorech is a level 2 organization.
Nuestro principal objetivo es mejorar las condiciones de vida de las familias pobres del corredor seco de Guatemala.
Main goal is to improve the quality of life of the poor families along the dry corridor in Guatemala.
La presentación está en inglés, toda esta información va a quedar ahí. Sin embargo, nada más quisiera resaltar que somos una organización que trabaja por la gente más pobre en el Oriente.
Even though the material is going to be in English in the slides, he just wants to emphasize that they work for the people.
Bueno, ¿qué hemos hecho en el marco de este plan de la Alianza para la Prosperidad?
Within the Alliance Plan for Prosperity, this is what we have done.
Bueno, en la línea de dinamizar el sector productivo, pues hemos tratado de reactivar la producción de alimentos en una región que ha sido devastada, se han perdido las cosechas en los últimos 3 años.
They have increased the dynamic nature of the productive sector in an area that has been devastated by previous situations.
Hemos trabajado en alianza con la cooperación internacional, trabajando con alrededor de 1,500 familias, proveyéndoles semillas, fertilizantes, herramientas y capacitación en buenas prácticas agrícolas.
They have worked with about 1,500 families, providing them with seeds, tools, and all the utensils they need to grow their own food.
En alianza con la cooperación internacional.
Within the Alliance for Plan for Prosperity with international cooperation.
También hemos tratado de diversificar la producción de alimentos a través de la producción de hortalizas para diversificar el tipo de alimento que se consume, ¿no?
They have also emphasized diversifying the production of food.
En el tema de desarrollo de capital humano,
For human capital development,
bueno, hemos mejorado el acceso a alrededor de 50,000 personas al acceso al agua para consumo.
50,000 people have benefited from access to water.
También nuestra estructura organizativa pues ha mejorado el tejido social en la región, ya que aglutinamos alrededor de 7 organizaciones y más de 6,000 personas que tratan de buscar soluciones a sus propios problemas.
So they have structured and strengthened the whole fabric through the 7 organizations that come together to affect the 6,000 families.
Y lo interesante es que son gente campesina que se organiza para buscar soluciones a sus propios problemas.
These are farmers that come together on their own to solve their own problems.
Por otro lado, también Hemos trabajado en el tema ambiental a través de la conservación de los escasos bosques que quedan en la región.
They have also addressed the environmental challenge by conserving the small amount of forest that they still have in the region.
Hemos protegido alrededor de 750 hectáreas de bosques.
750 hectares of forest have been protected.
Asimismo, hemos establecido más de 1 millón de árboles como plantaciones nuevas.
And they have planted over 1 million trees as new.
Todo esto vinculándolo a los programas de incentivos forestales que tiene el Estado de Guatemala.
So these are all linked to the incentives for the forest sector in Guatemala.
Okay, ¿qué proponemos?
What are they proposing?
Lo primero, en Guatemala tenemos un problema estructural que es el acceso a la tierra.
Access to land is the most structural problem they have.
Un agricultor sin tierra es como un pescador sin acceso al océano, ¿no?
A farmer without land is like a fisherman without an ocean.
Entonces hay que buscar formas innovadoras de facilitar el acceso a la tierra, arrendando tierras o comprando fincas para dárselo a los
They're
productores.
looking for innovative alternative ways to provide access to the land to the farmers, leasing or buying.
Luego está el fortalecimiento de las cadenas de valor, especialmente lo que ya la gente produce, no iniciar con cosas nuevas porque eso es un poco más a mediano plazo.
They're strengthening the value supply chain of things that people are already doing and not just doing new things.
Recordemos que es gente que ha perdido sus últimas 3 cosechas, están padeciendo hambre, hay niños muriendo de hambre, entonces no podemos pensar muy a largo plazo.
They have some basic necessities. For 3 years, they have lost all their crops. They are hungry and kids are dying.
Necesitamos hacer acciones de inmediato.
These are immediate actions that need to be taken.
Bueno, necesitamos invertir en infraestructura productiva, especialmente el riego. Esto vendría a potencializar los rendimientos que actualmente tienen las personas, incluso pudiendo obtener 2 cosechas.
They are strengthening the infrastructure for production, especially regarding watering, and taking the advantage of the rainwater.
Asimismo, pensamos que se debe de construir bancos de semillas estratégicamente distribuidos en la región para que la gente pueda tener alimentos en etapas críticas como la que estamos viviendo.
So they're also working on distributed banks for seeds across the region so people will have access to them.
También se necesita el acceso a microcréditos,
Microcredits is also something that they need.
pero no como se está manejando actualmente en Guatemala.
Not the same way they're doing it.
Los microcréditos tienen altas tasas de interés, incluso por encima de lo que ofrece la banca tradicional.
Because currently the microcredits have even higher rates than the normal ones.
Se volvió otro negocio
It was
financiero.
another different kind of financial market.
Bueno, en el tema de desarrollo capital humano, pensamos que hay que capacitar a las personas de acuerdo a la demanda de trabajo existente en la región.
They're training people according to the demands of what the region needs.
Y deben ser oficios diferentes a la agricultura para diversificarla, darle más oportunidad a los jóvenes especialmente y las mujeres.
And to diversify and address especially young people and women, they are offering skills beyond just being farmers.
El tema de educación, ya se hablaba ayer, es vital, es la base para que una persona pueda desarrollarse como ser humano.
Education is critical to develop people as human beings.
Por lo tanto, debe también promoverse becas de estudio a todos los niveles, primario, diversificado y a nivel universitario también.
Providing scholarships at every single level from university down.
Y por último, fortalecer los centros de desarrollo empresarial para promover el emprendedurismo en la región, a todo nivel, en lo urbano y en lo rural. La intención es dinamizar la economía y generar empleo local.
They want to make the economy more dynamic through a focus on entrepreneurship both at the urban and rural levels.
Ok, eso es todo. Muchas gracias por su
Thank
tiempo.
you.
Gracias, muy amable.
Muy buenos días a todos y a todas. Agradecemos a la Universidad de Texas por haber considerado el punto de vista de los agricultores en este evento, que creo que es importante.
Good morning to everyone, and we are very thankful for the topics that are being discussed here today because they're going to be very helpful to producers in our countries. Estás dando la otra. No, es este.
Es que está saltada. Ajá, ya salió la de… Ahí está.
Es el verde.
Gracias. Bueno, voy a presentar el caso de la Asociación de Organizaciones de los Cuchumatanes.
I'm going to present the case situation of my association, which you see there, of Cuchumatanes.
Esta organización es una organización de segundo nivel
It's an organization, a second level organization, second tier,
que agremia 19 pequeñas organizaciones de productores
which consists of 19 smaller producer associations.
en la Sierra de los Cuchumatanes, en el altiplano de Huehuetenango, Guatemala.
It's in Huehuetenango, Guatemala.
Básicamente trabajamos con 9,000 familias, de las cuales el 90% es población indígena.
We work with 9,000 families, 90% of them are indigenous
Y
people.
estamos enfocados en 4 sistemas de producción que los pueden ver luego en la presentación ahí.
We are focusing on 4 production systems, which you will see in the slide.
La organización cuenta con un plan estratégico y tiene 5 líneas de acción que podemos ver al final.
We have a strategic plan, which consists of 5 action steps.
Y es sobre el cual estamos enfocando nuestro trabajo en los próximos 5 años.
And we're focusing on these for the next 5 years.
Esta imagen nos muestra las condiciones de la sierra. Estamos hablando de 3,000 metros sobre el nivel del mar.
This picture shows us the conditions up on the highlands, about 9,000 meters above sea level.
¿Cuáles son los principales logros que hemos tenido en la organización en estos 15 años? Podemos resaltar los siguientes.
These are some of the accomplishments that we have been able to do for the last few years.
Hemos logrado formar técnicos locales, campesinos, para hacer extensión agrícola.
We have trained some local farmers in technical issues so that they can be extensionists.
Ya que el sistema de extensión en Guatemala no funciona.
Since the extension system in the country of Guatemala doesn't really work.
Hemos logrado aumentar los rendimientos del cultivo de maíz y frijol.
We have been able to increase the yields of beans and corn
en un 100%,
by 100% increase,
lo cual pone disponibilidad de comida en las familias en más o menos 7 meses y medio.
so for about 7.5 months, people have enough food to eat as a result.
Cuando el promedio anda 4 meses de disponibilidad de comida en el altiplano.
When typically in that area, people usually only have about 4.5 months worth of food.
Por medio de la formación de empresas con campesinos, hemos logrado dinamizar algunas cadenas de valor.
We have been able to spur into action several value chains.
Vinculadas básicamente al cultivo de la papa,
They are connected to the production of potatoes,
o carne de ovejas, bosque, madera básicamente y cebolla.
lamb forestry, and onion.
También hemos impulsado el mejoramiento o la adopción de nueva tecnología, como son los invernaderos y la reconversión la reconversión de sistemas de riego de aspersión a goteo y establecimiento de riegos también por aspersión.
They have been able to implement some technical advances such as greenhouses and drip irrigation.
También hemos logrado con participación de las comunidades implementar planes de adaptación a cambio climático con participación de los comunitarios.
We have integrated activities with the community regarding ways to adapt to climate change.
Y por último, hemos logrado ingresar al programa de incentivos que el gobierno tiene, 11,000 hectáreas de bosque en diferentes modalidades, reforestación y protección de bosque.
And we have been able to integrate ourselves into a government program with 11,000 hectares of forest land that we can use.
Estas 4 imágenes nos muestran algunos sistemas de riego por goteo arriba.
These are some of the drip irrigation methods that we are employing.
Abajo un sistema de reforestación en condiciones extremas.
And the lower pictures show you the reforestation activities.
Y lo que estamos haciendo con el tema de la papa ahora, dándole un valor agregado ya de lavado a la papa.
And on the lower right is the washing operation for potatoes to add value.
¿En qué proponemos que se deberían invertir en los próximos años?
So what are we proposing that we should be investing in the next few years?
Creemos de que se debe de fortalecer a las organizaciones de productores que están trabajando cadenas de valor.
As you see there, to build up and strengthen the organizations so that they can work on value chains with added value, such as potatoes, vegetables, sheep, meat, which is lamb, and coffee.
Debemos de impulsar el tema de valor agregado a estas cadenas de valor y darle un agregado más al cultivo, aunado a la anterior, infraestructura productiva, básicamente sistemas de riego.
So in order to add value to these value chains, we need to have methods of production that are efficient, such as the irrigation methods that I talked about.
En la sierra no hay muchas fuentes de agua, entonces hay que hacer mecanismos de cosecha de agua para hacer sistemas de riego para tener acceso en ventanas diferentes a mercados.
So in the highlands, there's not very much water that's available, so we have to have systems of water catchment so that we can use those for irrigation.
Acceso a capital o a créditos, pero a intereses blandos.
Access to capital or to credit with low interest.
Impulsar o continuar impulsando la agricultura resiliente, principalmente de los sistemas de maíz y frijol, que es la base alimentaria en el altiplano.
And continue to promote the production of corn and bean production, which is the staple foods in that region of the country.
Continuar con la formación del recurso humano local, campesinos que se forman para que den extensión agrícola a otros agricultores.
And continuing our train-the-trainer program for farmers so that they can train others as extension agents.
Implementar planes de adaptación a cambio climático a nivel de microcuencas con participación comunitaria.
And to implement some climate change adaptation and resilience systems.
Este sistema, por ejemplo, es un sistema artesanal de riego.
This is a irrigation method that it's custom made
con cosecha de agua de lluvia.
After having collected rainwater.
Y por último, nosotros con esto creemos de que se puede mejorar la producción de las cadenas de valor.
And we think we can improve the value chains with these strategies.
Crear fuentes de empleo, principalmente para jóvenes en el área rural.
Just like you see there, the various outcomes such as job creation for youth.
Pero con conexión a mercado.
But always because of the connection with a market.
Aumentar la disponibilidad de alimentos, principalmente maíz y frijol en el altiplano.
So to continue to increase food security, as it says there, through production of corn and beans.
Mejorar las condiciones de vida de los pequeños productores.
To improve the livelihoods and living conditions of these smallholder farmers.
Y manejar de manera integrada los recursos naturales que las comunidades tienen a nivel de microcuencas.
And to really manage in an integrated fashion the natural resources at the micro watershed level.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much.
Put the time. Good morning.
We're going to change country now and go to Honduras.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. First, I want to say thank you for Jesus Christ to bring me here. It's a pleasure to share with all the professionals here. It's a good opportunity for us. It's an amazing opportunity to be here and with all NGOs, universities, everybody here. And it's a pleasure also to be here in the panel and share with these guys that work very hard day by day. I already put the time here, doctor, so don't worry. Also, thank you for Dr. Norton, also Elsa. Thank you for bringing me here and invite Capucas for this presentation. So, my name is Omar Rodriguez. I am the manager of Capucas. In each meeting that we have in our cooperative, we start with a prayer. I hope that we don't forget God, because for us, I respect what you believe, but for us, we are strong believers in God, and we know that He is behind everything. So yesterday, I listened to the Congresswoman saying that she feels faith in Africa. And I see that every day in our place. People believe in the things that leaders, people that can share knowledge, can share ideas, and follow that idea. So it's very important that we don't lose the faith and continue fighting against poverty and against all the problems that we have in Central America. That's very important. And for me, I don't want to forget to give that message to you. Then I will continue with the presentation. What button I push? The green. So I will try to go fast. So certifications. All in these rooms are NGOs here and people that know about certification standards. So that's the first thing that we're trying to do in Capucas, apply these standards, because it's very important that people can follow a standard. And it's a way to work. It's not only about money. It's difficult because farmers only think about money in the beginning because they have a lot of problems. They want to solve their problems first. They want money in the pocket. But that's the thing that the leaders have to share with them. That it's not only about money. It's also about to apply or compete, because they are competing against another countries. We compete with Guatemala, Costa Rica. For Honduras, it's very hard to compete. I remember in 2005 when I visited the first SEAA here in America, and I bring a lot of examples, thinking that I will sell a lot of coffee. And they take the examples and they throw in the garbage when I leave the place. And sometimes they don't receive me. They say, no, I don't want Honduras coffee because it's bad quality. You blend the coffee, you send a good example, and then you send a bad container. So then I start to understand what the market think about Honduras for that time. So we think we need to change this. We need to change this idea of the market here and compete. So we start to work with the farmers with these standards. Rainforest, we begin with rainforest, then we get fair trade. Organic, of course, from the beginning. For Europe, cafe practices, beer-friendly, jazz, kosher, and UTS. And a lot of certification that we have also now. So it's very important to apply these standards for the farmers. They know how to do. Just need somebody that give the knowledge to them, but they can apply these standards, and we prove that this is true. So, and now we are selling coffee here in U.S. So, but there are a few dates, or times that I want to share with you, because it's not easy work with this situation. But we begin in 68. My grandfather brings 2 seeds. All this history starts with 2 seeds that he brings from Costa Rica. For that time, imagine that Costa Rica have pavimented road and the coffee farms, but in Capucas was no road, only mules. My grandfather arrived to the farm. So he see that in Costa Rica, and he bring all that dream to Capucas. So with 2 seeds of Caturra, started the movement. Then we have to wait until 1999 to the first COP in Capucas, which is Capucas. And Then we have a big crisis, financial crisis, that we want also share, because it's not only the good things that maybe happen in our countries. Or, I mean, many things that happen in middlemen that work with the farmer. They steal the coffee from them. They, also bad entrepreneurs, bad companies that they just came to the community and say, yes, we want to help you as a co-op, but then you see that it's only they want your coffee, and that's it. So we begin in 2004 to develop our own history. And how we do? It's very easy. With the program Farmer to Farmer, we bring a lot of volunteers, people like you, that they want to share knowledge. They came to us, and they help a lot. I remember Rick Peiser that helped us to open a market with Green Mountain. And then with Green Mountain, they put money to Hafer, and Hafer helped us to develop more projects. So many things that happen with only one person that came in a community help us to develop the community and share the knowledge. It's not only money, it's about knowledge. And you have that knowledge. And it's something that I don't want to forget to say this morning is that we need you. We need universities. We need all the knowledge that you have and apply in our communities. We have many opportunities, many products that we need to develop. The good thing in our countries is that everything is to have to be done. Everything, I mean, it's a lot of potential on that. So we bring volunteers. I remember that we bring Chris Davison from Atlas. With him, we begin a competition, an internal competition, no, te van a conocer compa, or in English, they will know you bro. So all the farmers put one micro lot, because I say to the farmers, nobody know about capucas. We need be known in the market. So put a micro lot, put the best that you have, and we will try to export. And with this guy, with Atlas, we begin this project. And now we have 9 years doing the same competition year by year. It's something that the people wait every year in our community. Okay. I want to try to go fast with this. To diversify alternative products, honey. Now honey is the second product. The main product is coffee. Then second product is honey. People can produce in their home. They can have hobbies in specific places. And here we have, and I hope that you can find in these slides place that you can say, okay, I want to work in this area. I can develop that area. That is our goal this morning, that you can say as a professional, yes, I know how to develop more product with honey. And I can help you to develop more products or more alternative products to us also. So now we are producing 150 barrels of honey. But the good thing with this is also that we are developed the native bees, which are very rich in nutrients. But nobody knows about that. I came here to the university and asked about Melipona's bee, honey. And they say, no, we don't know anything about this, just the apis. We study only the apis, the ones that have sting you. But these native bees didn't sting you. You can have in your home. So people is not afraid to have in your home. And add to that is more expensive. And the local market is very high. And you can sell for a good price. But you can develop more products on that. In Mexico, for example, they are doing things for the eyes, things for the throat. So this kind of product that we can develop in our community, thinking in the entrepreneurial way, so to develop more products. Also, a little bit of tourists. In case you want to visit us in Capucas, we have a place in the middle of the farm. You can stay there, study one topic, or visit us, know about coffee, know about the community, so you can stay there. And now we are receiving groups, people from Italy, people from Germany, a lot of coffee lovers that came to our community, and they want to know more about origin. They want to learn how to pick coffee, how to process coffee, how to dry coffee, and everything. I hope that the next time we can have Capucas coffee here, fruits, don't drink Coke, and drink a good juice. So things like that, that we can start to change this situation. So in the end, with the premium of fair trade, I heard yesterday that somebody is not agree about fair trade, but in our case, we use the premium to invest in the community, in the social projects. And we build 2 rooms for a virtual university, the first rural university in Honduras. That the idea is to give opportunities for the young people to study locally, to study there. And of course, in coffee, because we need that this continue, that the next generation continue in coffee. So we have a school for kids for copying. We have a school for kids for barista, now or barista, that is from Capucas, participate in Dublin and represent Honduras. And they transmit online and the most important TV in Honduras. And it's amazing how this girl transmit the message, and now a lot of young people will get involved as a barista because they want to participate in this competition because it's international competition. So we feel very proud that this education, this share that we did in the end have these results. That's the idea. I already said that. Of course, we have a lot of challenges. One of the first challenges is energy. In our case, the energy that we receive is monophasic. That means that we cannot transform products or cannot put an industry there. So that's investment that the government have to make for us. So that's investment that maybe you can suggest to them because you have, I don't know, the power, or you can push them, okay, please help these people because you are giving monophasic energy that only turn on a TV to see a novela from Mexico that is no knowledge for them. So in the end, they say, yes, we are against drug traffic. And the only thing that the kids see in the TV is Colombia movies that promote that situation. So what we are doing with that? So we need industry on the field. We need industry like you here in Texas and Dallas, that you transform the product, that you export. That's our goal, but we need this good energy. So we are trying to looking for green energy, solar energy. Also, of course, the rust was a big problem in our community, but because the management that Capucas is doing in terms of in an organic way, and also the info that we have on time, USAID put a meteorological station, and with that we have the info, temperature, humidity, and as you know, as a professional, that rust have some specific times when it's starting. So if we can prevent, I receive a lot of visit of people that are trying to sell me chemics, and they said in the end, you know, the best thing is prevent rust. Even if you buy my chemics and you already have the rust, you are wasting your money. So in the end, we transmit that message to the farmer. And how we do? Just all of them have a cell phone. So we send a message to them and saying, okay, the product in the co-op is ready, came from the product, and spray. Is the right time, and have to be now. So, is finished my time? I was starting. Infrastructure, of course, we need that. And then you can have a presentation and read later. Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you very much, all of you. These are very impressive presentations, and you're obviously doing great work in the field. One of the questions a couple of the questions that we have are, first of all, what do you expect from international cooperation? How can it help? We know sometimes projects are short in duration and maybe they don't provide the kind of support that is useful to you, but we'd like to hear your view on what is most productive from international cooperation. Another question is, especially for Sergio and Edgar, when you're expanding your organizations and bringing in other farmer groups and so on, do you find resistance sometimes, and how do you convince them that what your cooperative has to offer is worth joining, worth their effort? Sí. Perdón, lo puedo decir en español también si quiere.
¿Me ayuda con la traducción? Bueno, la verdad es que la gente, recordemos que, por ejemplo, son agricultores porque sus antepasados 2000 años atrás, pues eran agricultores.
Let's remember that people are agricultural producers because their family going back many generations were agricultural producers.
2000 years ago.
2,000 years ago.
Sus antepasados eran agricultores.
Their
Entonces,
ancestors.
y son productores de maíz y frijol, básicamente.
And they were producers of corn and beans, basically.
Y utilizaban los indicadores climáticos por sus por conocimientos ancestrales para cultivar estos granos.
And then they would utilize the knowledge passed down from generations of climate and so forth in order to make decisions on cultivation.
Entonces, sí es normal encontrar cierta resistencia a hacer actividades productivas nuevas.
So there is some resistance to adopting new practices.
Por eso mi propuesta era tratar de potencializar lo que la gente ya está haciendo, incrementando sus rendimientos a través de la inversión en infraestructura de riego, buenas prácticas agrícolas y paquetes tecnológicos.
So his idea is to actually strengthen what they already know how to do, and to add to that better methods of cultivation, better irrigation methods, and so forth.
Y por último, creo que hay que diferenciar los grupos de personas y de acuerdo a sus condiciones y a su potencial, así el tipo de apoyo que se debe de brindar no se puede generalizar.
One size doesn't fit all. You have to try to divide people according to what knowledge they need and where they are right now, and then address those needs individually.
Muy bien.
En el altiplano sí hay resistencia al cambio, pero hay que trabajar mucho la sensibilización.
In the highlands, there is a lot of resistance to change, but we have to work on this.
La gente se está dando cuenta que si no cambia su forma de producir, va a quedar fuera del acceso al mercado.
They realize, the people there, that if they don't change the way that they do things, they're going to be left out of the future markets.
Están dos segmentos, uno es el de seguridad alimentaria y el otro es el de cadenas de valor.
There's two segments, one food security, really, and the other one is the value chain segment.
Los dos tienen que trabajarse de manera equilibrada en el altiplano.
In the highlands, we have to work on both in an equal way.
Y la otra pregunta es, ¿qué les puede ofrecer la cooperación internacional? ¿Qué sería más productivo en lo que pueden
So what
ofrecer?
does international cooperation can offer?
Yo creo que la cooperación internacional debe trabajar con las organizaciones locales, que son, para empezar, las que aglutinan a este tipo de personas y conocen más de cerca sus costumbres y sus potenciales.
He says that the international organizations need to work with local organizations because they're the ones that are most connected to people and really understand their customs and their ways, and can be more easily reached by them.
Y luego invertir en aprovechar los potenciales que tienen las personas y las condiciones geográficas donde ellos viven.
And then to make some investments to take advantage of the talents and abilities of the people there and do it according to the specific region.
Y por último, fortalecer las iniciativas, que por cierto hay muchas. Creo que Guatemala es uno de los países que más iniciativas tiene, donde la gente tiene mucho emprendedurismo en nuestro país. Tenemos muy buenos indicadores en ese tema.
In Guatemala, the people are very entrepreneurial, to strengthen the strategies that will take advantage of that.
Yo creo que las inversiones de la cooperación internacional deben ir directamente a las organizaciones de productores.
He believes that the international efforts need to be investing in the producer associations.
Y creo que en los próximos años debe reducirse el tema de estudios, diagnósticos, porque realmente se ha invertido demasiado dinero en todo este tema y los recursos que bajan a las comunidades son invisibles.
Says that a lot of resources have been spent on studies and assessments. A lot of money has been spent on that, and very little bit has trickled down to the actual producers.
Nuestra organización en 15 años ha invertido $14 millones.
Our organization, for example, has spent about $14 million over the last 15 years.
Principalmente de cooperación de la Unión Europea.
Money that comes from the European Union.
Y hemos visto que con poco dinero hemos podido impactar realmente en las familias.
And with a little bit of money, we've been able to make a great impact on families.
Yes. Yes, I want to add, I think they say everything, almost everything. I understand that the cooperation, they've trying to looking for first for the official representative in the country. Let's say ICAFE, because there's the official institute that represent all the producers. But I think, as they say, go for local. As you say, and I see a lot of stickers and cars here saying, go for local, consume the local. So go for the locals and listen them. Because I see a lot of cases, and a lot of cases that a project, they came and say, okay, we need to spend this in a car because the project say that we need to spend. And then they say, no, we don't need a car. And then they say, okay, give me back the money. And so they buy the car that they don't need. And that happened a lot in Central America and happened a lot in our countries. So I think first thing is listen to people as you are doing today, this morning. Listen to us, give an opportunity to share with you, and you will find the good way for the money. For example, we invest now in a greenhouse for people in Capucas, a coffee producer that grow tomatoes. We give an access to the market in the city in San Pedro Sula with a big supermarket. They buy the product, and one producer, he made $3,500 in 6 months net cash for him. So it's working, can work. But of course, if you take care of all the steps, production and the market, and of course the manage all of this situation. So I think just listen to people, and that's the key.
Excuse me. I got excited with the comments my colleagues made. And I think that the main idea is to listen to the voices of the farmers and ensuring that in all these meetings you follow the examples set up today of getting always the representatives of farmer organizations. Then you have a blend of colors, you have a blend of ideas, and you can put your fingers on the pulse on what actually is working. There are many different ways of telling the story of success, but one that is undisputable is at the moment that farmers can show the satisfactions of reaching a goal. And we know by fact that farmers are more responsible for food security than any other international program. 80% of the food in Central America that is consumed locally is produced by local farmers. And the other element is the high quality produces that they have. The specialty coffee definition is tantamount to being produced by smallholder farmers.
Thank you, Oscar. Thank you. Now we'd like to have questions and comments from the audience and for our panelists so they can respond.
Good morning, Rafael Lara from Texas A&M. I truly appreciate your great presentation, the realistic of the kind of work that you are carrying over. My question is, already Capucas addressed this issue, but
Muy realista.
what for you, I'm going to do it in Spanish quickly, is the major challenge that you will be facing in the near time, let's say 12 months from now. So mi pregunta hacia ustedes es, aprecio la calidad de trabajo que han estado haciendo y veo lo que está pasando en los Cuchumatanes, con la parte de Chortiz. ¿Cuál es el mayor reto que ustedes estarán enfrentando en los próximos 6, 12 meses a fin de ver qué podemos sacar en común? Muchas gracias.
Sí, gracias por la pregunta. Bueno, sencillo. Más de 200,000 familias que han perdido sus últimas 3 cosechas y están pasando hambre.
It's simple. More than 7,000 families who've lost their last 3 harvests and they're hungry, suffering hunger.
La prioridad es reactivar la producción de alimentos de esas 200,000 familias.
Yeah. The priority is to reactivate the production for those families. And by the way, that's one reason that they're emphasizing things like irrigation. Sergio?
Bueno, básicamente nosotros vemos que en los próximos 12 meses vamos a tener problemas por efectos de cambio climático.
In the next 12 months, we're certain that we're going to face problems because of climate change.
Vimos de que se sembró, regularmente se siembra a principios de mayo y ahora se ha corrido demasiado porque no ha habido lluvia.
Wow. In the past, it was always the case that the planting was done in May, and by the way, that's traditional throughout Central America. And now the planting date has been going, being pushed further back.
Y se proyecta que este año va a ser uno de los años más secos, entonces creemos de que vamos a tener problemas serios por falta de agua.
Yeah, the projection is that this year is going to be one of the driest years, so we're going to have serious problems of access to water.
Y en la sierra se le suma en los Cuchumatanes la escasez de agua más los problemas de heladas.
Más los problemas de
heladas.
Wow.
Bajas temperaturas.
Wow. And in addition to the scarcity of water in the mountainous areas of Guatemala where they work, they're going to have problems of also freezes and on top of the lack of water.
¿Puedo agregar?
Sí.
Bueno, creo que la intervención debe ser paralelo al apoyo a las familias que están padeciendo hambre, debe también acompañarse con actividades que permitan que las cosas no se vuelvan a repetir.
Yeah, the immediate aid for the families that are actually suffering hunger has to be accompanied with also training them in activities and productive efforts so that this situation won't be repeated in the future.
Y ahí es donde viene todo el tema de invertir en emprendedurismo, en el tema de educación, el tema de nuevas cadenas de valor, todo eso, pero la prioridad es atender a la gente que está en situación crítica, ¿no?
Yeah, priority is always taking care of these people who are in a critical situation, but looking to the future, we see the need for development of entrepreneurship and education and value chains. Jose Omar?
Yes, I think for us, one of the biggest problems that we have in our country, of course, is global warming, but then up to this is electricity, infrastructure. So the electricity happened that one day we don't have electricity, and imagine if you want to process a good quality coffee and you don't have electricity, and the weather is raining. So this kind of situation, in the end, you lost the product, so you lost money. So things like that we need fix fast.
Buenos días. Excuse me, I'm going to do this in Spanish. Muchas gracias su presentación y más para sus trabajos. Tus comentarios me ponen a pensar que...
Thank you for your presentations and your great work. También tenemos problemas de electricidad.
Baterías. En la región tiene 2 centros internacionales, CIMIT y CIAT. Y que ustedes están describiendo, esto consiste de una emergencia. nosotros como centros internacionales no debemos, por esta compartimentalización, estar trabajando de emergencias. Sin embargo, todos los hacen, porque es lo correcto. Entonces, yo tengo una sugerencia que ustedes escriben a los directores generales de CIMIT y de CIAT, explicarles qué está le pasando y que les ayuda con sus bancos de semillas. Pero la otra cosa, la experiencia de CIP, es cuando esto pasó, yo invertí mucho en estas situaciones y lo utilizamos como oportunidad. Entonces, en Timor-Leste, por ejemplo, podíamos aumentar la productividad de batatas por triple, porque la introducción no solamente fue semilla mejorada, con capacitación, etcétera, etcétera. Entonces, utilizarlo como también una oportunidad de buscar, montar su banco de semillas, pero semillas mejoradas y que también le digan necesitamos que lo acompañe con entrenamiento. So what I was saying is that what they're really talking about is a crisis. And part of the problem we've had is international centers, because we have CIAT and CIMIT in the region who work on Central America. And we're not supposed to do emergency aid. And we do it anyway, because it is the correct thing to do. I usually had to finance this out of my own contingency fund, but it's incredible opportunity. It's a disaster not to waste. And so in Timor-Leste, we were able to triple sweet potato productivity just by introducing not just sweet potatoes, but improved varieties with training. So you need to put them on the hook to come in and help you.
I think that is such a great idea, and what you are describing is very much building a stronger network of collaboration. And we are happy to share that there are many steps in the right direction. There is collaboration agreements with in the works with CIMIT. There are great relationships with CIAT and CIP, and the possibility then is that these research centers, research institutions can keep on developing science and knowledge, and then these farm organizations can organize the next step on bringing that technology all the way to the farmers. A great example of that work is what is happening at Socuch. Sergio.
Gracias. En el caso del CIMIT, nosotros recientemente, hace año y medio,
In the case of CIMIT, recently, a year and a half ago,
iniciamos una relación con el CIMIT
we developed a relation with CIMIT
en el marco de mejoramiento participativo de maíz,
in the framework of participatory improvement of corn,
lo cual hemos venido trabajando en los últimos 15 años.
which is a topic we've been working on for the last 15 years.
Son procesos muy lentos, entonces para mejorar los maíces del altiplano se necesitan por lo menos 10 años.
Yeah, they're very slow processes, so for improving maize or corn in the highlands, you need at least 10 years.
Ahora el CIMI tiene un proyecto con recursos de USAID y estamos tratando de escalar la metodología.
Yeah, and CIMIT now has a USAID project, and they're trying to use that methodology and scale it up.
Bancos de semillas, más diversificación de fincas, sistema milpa, y tenemos el tema de conservación de suelos, los 3 ejes.
Yeah, the three focuses of that program are seed banks and diversification of crops on the farm and soil conservation. Sorry.
En el caso del CIP, estamos arrancando un proyecto donde nos van a asesorar para el tema de producción de semilla de papa.
Yeah, they're also working with CIP for potato seeds.
Con FinTrack también.
Okay. Bueno, realmente estamos haciendo una cantidad de cosas y la verdad es que me pongo muy ansioso, quisiera compartirlo todo, pero bueno.
He said, really, there's so many things I want to share all of them with you, but I'll try to be brief.
Quisiera agradecer la sugerencia de la persona que nos hizo el comentario.
He appreciates the suggestion of Dr. Anderson.
Nosotros estamos trabajando con el ICTA, que es el Instituto de Capacitación y Tecnificación Agrícola de Guatemala, en alianza con el IICA, y estamos también validando nuevos materiales de maíz, frijol y yuca como para precisamente hacer ese mejoramiento de la producción, pero específicamente en cultivos que la gente ya consume, porque iniciar cultivos nuevos o productos alimenticios nuevos es realmente muy complicado.
Yeah. They do have a partnership with Guatemala's National Agriculture Research Organization, which has the acronym ICTA, and they're working with them to work on new varieties of corn, beans, and cassava. He emphasizes that it's important to work with the crops that are basic food crops that the people already know, at least to start with.
Y también en el caso de gallinas criollas estamos mejorando los materiales genéticos.
Okay. They're also working on improving poultry, the native species of hens. We have time for one more question. Yeah.
Oh, hi, thank you. I'm Jorge da Silva, professor at Texas A&M AgriLife Research. I just wanted to, I was curious, even though we have 2 international centers here at CIMMYT, did I understand correct what you mentioned, there is investment from the European Union in Guatemala? Can you just...
And in Honduras, too. Yes.
Yeah, can you please explain what's the history of that? I'm sorry, I'm from Latin America, but I don't speak Spanish.
Thank you, Jorge.
Portugués.
Sí, sí.
Bueno, en el caso de Azorech, bueno, nosotros no hemos trabajado directamente con la Unión Europea, pero sí con países de Europa.
In the case of Azorech, his cooperative, they haven't worked with the European Union as an entity, but they have worked with individual European countries.
Específicamente estamos trabajando con una organización alemana que se llama ASB.
Yeah, working with a German organization.
Estamos atendiendo en este momento 1,200 familias en el tema de la emergencia en seguridad alimentaria.
For emergency aid for 1,200 families.
Y también estamos trabajando con una organización belga, al igual con Heifer International en el lado de Guatemala, organización norteamericana, atendiendo el tema de seguridad alimentaria, pero de un punto de vista más sostenible, ¿no?
Yeah. Also working with a Belgian organization through Heifer for the topic of food security in a more sustainable way.
Y la organización belga que se llama DISOP.
Bueno, en el caso nuestro, uno de los cooperantes más fuertes fue la Embajada de Holanda, o sea, los Países Bajos.
Yeah, Holland is actually one of the strongest partners that they have found.
Y en los últimos 7 años hemos tenido una relación fuerte con Noruega.
Also in the last 7 years, a strong relationship with Norway.
Y directamente la Unión Europea, nosotros hemos entrado en algunos consorcios, pero con ONGs europeas, básicamente.
Yeah, they have also participated in projects through consortia with European NGOs.
So Brexit's not going to affect the relationship?
So Brexit is not going to affect, la salida de los ingleses no va a afectar la relación.
Brexit. Well, I wanted to thank you all very, very much for a wonderful discussion. Help me give them a round of applause, thanking them for their efforts. And we have a token of our thanks to you. If you help me, Oscar, pass them around. Thank you very much. No, not 2 for you, just 1. You can keep it if you, don't give it to Roger. No, he doesn't get one.
Can I use the microphone
Sure,
for a second?
yes.
On behalf of this group of Central American good-looking guys, with emphasis on good-looking guys, we would like to share a set of beautiful pictures that portrayed landscapes and especially the faces of people in Central America, so that every time that you are thinking of cooperation, you are going to see people and beautiful backgrounds. So on behalf of this group.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So we need to get a...
Thank you very much. Thank you all very, very much. We will display these very proudly in the Borlaug Institute, so thank you. Oh, all of you together, Oscar. One more, just the panelists. Without me, no, just the panelists. It's okay. Okay, let's give him another round of applause. Okay. For our last session on policy and partnerships, creating an enabling environment. Can you all hear me? Yes? Okay. Can you hear me now, as the commercial says? Okay. For our last session, our moderator, Ms. Julie Borlaug, granddaughter of Dr. Norman Borlaug and Associate Director for External Relations at the Borlaug Institute, had a death in the family this week, so she could not join us, unfortunately. But in her place, I am very, very, very glad to introduce to you our Assistant Director for External Relations at the Borlaug Institute, and he is also a Senior Advisor to the Director, and it is Ambassador Eric Bost. Ambassador Eric Bost has a long career in food and health. He served as Undersecretary for Food, Nutrition, and Consumer Services with the U.S. Department of Agriculture, where he oversaw programs totaling $58 billion, with a B, $billion, such as the food stamp program, the Women, Infants, and Children WIC program, the school lunch and school breakfast, and he promoted food security worldwide while in that position. But he then was appointed by President George W. Bush as U.S. Ambassador to South Africa, where he served from 2006 to 2009. Among his many accomplishments, Ambassador Bost implemented the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief, or PEPFAR, in the continent. So please help me welcome Ambassador Eric Bost to the stage. And joining Ambassador Bost, please join me in the stage, Ingeniero Ricardo Santa Cruz, Director of Red IDI, Guatemalan Exporters Association, and Dr. Amy Angel, Senior Researcher and Institutional Development Strategies with FUSADES. And then finally, as a commenter, Dr. Juan Alberto Fuentes Knight of Oxfam.
Good morning, everyone. This session has to do with policy and partnerships, and I'd also add one other word, collaboration. When we consider what has been discussed over the course of the last 2 days, I think that that's very important when we look at moving toward addressing many of the challenges that have been discussed over the course of the last 2 days. And so I'm going to start with, who's going first? Engineer Santa Cruz, you're up first. Yes.
Okay, morning, everybody. I would like to say thank you because you invite me to be here in order to share our experiences and our suggestion to improve the productivity, the production, and in the agricultural sector in Guatemala. Let me say that this is the first time when I will give a speech in English. I hope to have enough vocabulary, okay? But also I was thinking to hire a playback service. Okay, let me say that I am part of the Guatemalan Export Association. This is a non-profit organization, it's a private organization. And we started in 90s with the idea to promote the exportation in different products, a non-traditional product from Guatemala. according to us, Guatemala can provide new jobs and better incomes to families who want to take risks starting new productive activities and the same activities doing a different way. Our goal is to assist our membership, almost 1,000 companies, but always analyze the complete cluster and identify the point of which is convenient to work in order to reduce risk and to increase our productivity and competitiveness. We usually found weakness in first links in the supply chain, and if it's necessary and recommendable to everybody understand that situation. That means that to work with providers, usually micro and small companies or organizations of small producers, providing training, technical assistance, and financial services. In this figure, you can see how Guatemala has increased the exportation in the last 30 years. And to assist our membership and the people who ask for services in a headport, we have five pillars to organize the job. We developed the export supply almost at the same time to develop markets. Yeah? We work with the companies in order to develop the export supply, to work with the producers in the complete chain. But also at the same time, it's necessary to identify the opportunities in the market. We also give training and technical assistance to all people working in the chain. It's necessary to understand that we are working in a system. And it isn't enough when you work just with the exporter or just with the producer. It's necessary to see all the system. We also work promoting private and public partnership because also need an appropriate business climate to compete and to have services to facilitate the trade. In this case, it's necessary to understand that the private sector and the public sector work together. And also working with micro, small, and medium-sized producers as part of the chain. I have worked with all sectors. As you can see, I'm talking about agricultural sector, we have at least 15 groups of entrepreneurs. This is the agricultural sector. And you can see 5 commissions there, but each one can divide by products. In that case, we have mangoes committee, we have avocados committee, we have berries committee as part of the fruits, yeah? We have 15 or 18 groups working according to products. Our activities include to design strategic plans, to trade promotion activities, training people to different levels of companies and organizations, and coaching to improve productivity, research and development plus innovation to diversify and to add value and to fulfill standards to get international certifications. Now, you need to have certification in each product, in each service. If you don't have it, you can't do business. And taking about international fairs, we attend the best ones. PMA in the United States is the the fair in which we are participating since 30 years. Food logistics in Germany, Sky for specialty coffees in Europe, Cial for ingredients, special ingredients, Salon du Chocolat for cocoa and chocolates. Those are specialty fairs in which we be present every year. And in that events, you can get your buyers, you can see how is the rest of the world working. You can get your opportunities. And then it's necessary to see to our country and develop the export supply according to that market. Those are good experiences to see other competitors and to contact buyers and to know more about logistics, prices, qualities, etc. But we are conscious about the difficulties to attend the fairs. Therefore, we organize local fairs in Guatemala. We know that not everybody can attend international fairs. And then we organize our own fairs in Central America. And the first one, AgriTrade, is a fair that we are working since 1988. We have 30 years almost working in this fair. This is a regional fair. Mexico and Central America participate in our fair. And this is a platform. And now the AgriTrade is each 2 years. But in the interim, in the 24 months, we work with the organization and with the producers in order to diversify, to invest in different products, to add value, because when we will have the next fair, we have new supply to offer. Also, we have rural fairs in Guatemala and in Central America, promoting with the new organizations the idea to invest in new products, yeah, and to tell to teach them that they are able to internationalize, to be in the markets, yeah, but not directly, but working as part of the chain. Headport also invests a lot of money and effort and time doing proposals for public policies. But also we have good friends and international agencies working with us. They trust in a headport. And we have implemented several programs and projects with good results, not only in conventional production, because every day include more environmental issues, working with leaders, young people, and women. A headport also works in environmental issues. We have get our neutral carbon certification since 4 years ago. And all of our events certify the print that they cause, and the idea is to have the responsibility to mitigate the environmental mark. AGEPO also is part of the Central American Federation. We, in the different countries, there are an export chamber or export association, and we are part of that federation. But also we have our encadenamientos empresariales. This is a model to work with small farmers, small producers in different sectors, but talking about agriculture. We have organization of small farmers working with new products, but we identify the group of producers. We help them to improve their productivity and to comply with the international regulations. And this is the model. This is a way to explain. In the first part, we look for a buyer, 1 or 2 or 3 buyers. But at the same time, we look for the group. And then we invite them to have a meeting to discuss the opportunity to do business. And if you see the people that they have interest to work together, it's convenient to identify, to see the age of the people, because you can identify the interest to work together, to do business, but also to help the rural families. In that case, you can see, and in the future, a good business. In other words, if you see shine in the eyes of both parts, you can prognosticate good relationships. The entrepreneur or the buyer want to do business and to earn money. But the small producers also want to earn money, but both parts want to be appreciated. In the next steps, we identify gaps. Usually, we saw that there are, or there aren't, infrastructure, public services, and in that case, our specialists coach the group to look for the answer in the public agencies. And in the other cases, if they need knowledge, they need technology, they need seeds, in that case, we can help them directly, teaching, giving technical assistance, and also providing some inputs in order that they produce. At the end, we monitor some keys, like sales and quantity of new jobs. This is the result, the impact that we can get. This is another way to explain the model. Yeah, in the first part, we find the producers and make a baseline study. Yeah, and in the next, at the same time, we identify the buyer, and we work together designing the business plan. When you are working in that design, you identify gaps. And then we design a technical assistance plan, yeah, in order to help them, both parts, to do business. A helper usually invests $60,000 or $80,000 per group. And it can mean 15 to 18 or until 24 months working closely with the groups. The assistance plan usually includes the first part of the entrepreneurship. It's necessary to help the groups to that they recognize that they are doing business. It's necessary that they manage money, They have how to organize the production. They have how to direct their group. And also at the same time, it's convenient to work with the production in order that they comply with the regulation, with the standards. At the same time, it's convenient to work in the marketing, that they identify the characteristics of the markets, prices, qualities, and to apply good manufacturing practices, good agricultural practices. And also, it's convenient to work in leaderships. Yeah, it's convenient to work with the leaders, and they how to direct their organization, and also to work with women. Somebody said here yesterday that the woman is use better the money. Yeah, and that's the truth. It's a true. In my home, it's similar. You too. And also we work in food security. It's convenient to teach the families to use the new incomes in better studies, in better health, and in food security. And you can see we include the power of rural women and environment issues. The environmental issues because, as our friends, our colleagues said, the climate change is giving some new, retos or desafíos or challenges. Because in Guatemala, we say that we are a country with the eternal springs. But the plants also enjoy the eternal springs. We have plants all the year. We have plants living all the year, and then the insects have the adequate, the environmental adequate for reproduce. But on the last part, it's convenient to invest more effort and more money in research and development, plus innovation. It's the unique way that we will be participating always in the market, because every country is trying to do it. And we have some results taking groups, and they are participating in international markets, but they are competing. They are competing with other providers, with other countries, and then it's necessary to innovate. Okay, and the last part. We saw the results with the sales and with new jobs. This is the impact that we want to get. At the end, I would like to say that we have a big challenge. We together, everybody who is in this room, we have the responsibility to find opportunity for poor families living in rural areas. Most of them are illiterate. Most of them doesn't speak Spanish because they use their own languages. The young people knows that there is another world, and most of them doesn't want to be traditional farmers. They want to be better than their fathers. Don't forget that most of them just have a piece of land, no more than 1 acre, and with a characteristic in the highlands, with big slab. The people who study agronomy, so the agronomists know that it's not convenient to grow in that land with big slab. But this is our reality. We have many people living there, and we need to adapt technology for that conditions. This is our challenge. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Now we'll hear from Amy. Angel, you're up next. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eric. I want to thank the Borlaug Institute, Dr. Morano, Roger, for bringing me here to be able to share some ideas. I'm a member of the team at Fuentes, which is a public policy research institute in El Salvador. And I think it allows me to have a little bit of perspective, because I don't have to I'm not beholden to a government or an NGO or an international cooperation agency, so I can maybe give some insights about what's going on. I think I'd like to talk to you about a few partnerships. I'd like to speak about some programs and projects, and also policies. Because in the end, we really have to have all those elements together to be able to create a successful development outcome. And I think we've talked a lot about different projects, but we haven't talked very much about policy. But to start with some partnerships, I think we have some really interesting examples in El Salvador, some partnership initiatives, large-scale initiatives that can have some interesting lessons and some interesting impacts in terms of agricultural development and rural development. For example, a Purchase for Progress by the World Food Program with, I think it's with some AID assistance as well. They're forming associative groups of farmers to mostly for basic grain production, improve their yields, have very good post-harvest processing and packaging facilities, and to sell directly to institutional buyers. And so I think they have some really interesting results. Another interesting program in El Salvador are both of our major supermarket chains are involved now, increasingly involved in buying local and buying directly from producers and producer organizations. I think we see that trend in a lot of chains in Central America. And I think that's very beneficial. Really interesting to see how that's been changing the impetus for particularly fruit and vegetable production in El Salvador. And so I think it'll be interesting to see how these initiatives with supermarkets evolve. And thirdly, I wanted to mention the Alianza Cacao, which is a project that's just kind of getting started. It's a really large-scale project with a lot of different actors, including the Howard Buffett Foundation, CRS, USAID, a series of other institutions. And they're looking to expand cocoa production by over 20,000 hectares in El Salvador, involving a similar number of farmers, maybe a few less than that. And so it's a large project. And I'm going to speak a little bit about some concerns that I have for each of these as all these initiatives continue to move forward. But first of all, what are some of the really good practices that I think that we can see from some initiatives and why they're so important? Of strengthening farmer organizations. My colleagues in the session before spoke about this. If you want to look at sustainability, you have to have stronger organizations. If not, it's just a temporary investment that you're doing in terms of their governance, in terms of their administrative capacity. That really is, to me, the most important investment that you can make in any of these development projects. Creating economies of scale. And when we talk about Central America, we're talking about small farmers. We talk about family farmers. You look at the numbers for averages of how much land they have in El Salvador. For example, a family farmer in El Salvador will have maybe 1, 2, or 3 hectares. In Brazil, an average family farmer has about 25 to 30 hectares. So you're talking about just a big difference. So it's difficult to compare what kinds of interventions those farmers need. But we also see the tremendous benefit that these associative activities can have for the small farmers. And we also see the difficulty of interventions. Because if you want to intervene to have impact on 100,000 hectares of some of these crops in El Salvador, you have to work with about 50 to 75,000 producers. And that is costly. That's costly. So that's, I think, a tremendous challenge when we talk about how to improve productivity, how to improve profitability for these small farmers. Focusing on higher value products. I think some of my colleagues before have spoken about the diversification initiatives that they've had and how beneficial it can be, not only because farmers can generate more income from what they're producing, but there are also some tremendous spillover effects that improve their productivity and their basic grains crops as well. And that's an area that we need to continue to emphasize as we look forward. Pragmatic relationships with supermarkets and agro-industry. I think a lot of times due to ideological tendencies, we tend to think that the small farmers can do it all. Even when they're an organization, that organization can do it all. While in a lot of value chains, really, it's very convenient for a responsible agro-industry to be direct buyers from these farmers. I think we need to not disavow working with agro-industry, disavow working with supermarkets, because we can see it can be a very beneficial relationship. So we need to be pragmatic in our approach. Preparing for market saturation. That's something that in Central America we face very quickly in these development projects, because we tend to start with the domestic market. But we realize that in some of these products, you're going to be saturating the national market with 100 or 200 hectares or less of a product. So you need to be able to look beyond that, look into processing, look into exporting. As we look at the cocoa project, it seems like all the Central American countries are growing their cocoa industries and their cocoa production. Most are looking towards emphasizing a higher value or specialty cocoas, and I think that's great. But I think also we need to think I'd like to see a good estimate for the longer term to make sure that we're not going to saturate that market on a world level as well. I don't know if anybody's really looked at that idea or that possibility for the future. Effective impact evaluation. This is something that we really are still not doing well, both in national projects, both in international cooperation, in terms of, first of all, just getting good indicators, not even talking about impact, just talking about project indicators, implementation indicators. In Fuentes, we were asked to bid on a baseline survey for one of the big coffee projects that is working in El Salvador. And we went to the informational meeting, and they said, well, we don't have enough money for a control group. So we're just going to do a baseline for our participants, and then we'll survey them later on. So, well, how are you going to know what impact you've had? You can't. So until we really look at this and are willing to invest the money in this, we can't figure out how well we have done our activities, what impact we have had. And then you look beyond the longer term impact. We also just look at immediate impacts from these projects, but we very rarely go back 3, 4, 5 years later to see what has remained. And I think it would be important to see what kinds of options or mechanisms or tools we can include so that we can go back and look at these projects several years later to better understand what has remained from all our efforts. I spoke with one colleague here from the Borlaug Institute, and I asked her, how much of all these initiatives you have had in Guatemala, how many of them have been able to sustain themselves? As well, I really don't know. you know, and she's not the exception. She's the rule. Everybody, we really don't know how much good we've done in the long term. Maybe some anecdotal evidence, but nothing concrete. So I think it's something that we need to start thinking about if we want to do development better. Relying less on public institutions. It pains me to say it, but in the measure that you need the government less, the better off you will probably be, unfortunately, because of all the difficulties that government has in terms of stability in how much resources it can dedicate to what you need, in terms of political fairness in the services it can deliver, depending upon whose side you're on. And so in the measure that we can depend less on government for a lot of these programs, I think the better off we can be. And how do we do that? Well, you can look at a lot of producer-financed initiatives, checkoffs, those types of activities to help with particularly the things that government doesn't deliver well at all. And that's we've seen a lot in terms of extension services where that can be very important. And research also. So I think those are a couple of ideas that I wanted to share on that. And finally, on women's empowerment. When we talk about, I was very excited to see how much we started to talk about women and youth and really see that those are key elements as we move forward in agriculture and rural development in the region. But I think we also need to look at who we're working with. When we talk about women's empowerment, we typically are getting women who are a little bit more able to exceed or to access these kinds of activities. But we don't see perhaps some more fundamental changes, more fundamental activities to be able to just begin to bring women out of their houses. We have a great program that was conditional cash transfers in El Salvador that included also a lot of training for the mothers just to get them to have some social interactions, to get them to start thinking about not only how can they improve their home, but how can they improve their lives. And we saw that in a later study that we did for this program in El Salvador, we saw that these women were much more empowered than women who had not participated in the conditional cash transfer program. Perhaps they didn't have those great economic incomes yet, but we saw that they were more empowered and they were perhaps more prepared to take advantage of all these new project and program and initiatives that are increasingly targeting women in the region. What worries me? Really, two big things worry me when we talk about these projects. It's scalability and sustainability. Scalability in terms of how much would it cost to expand some of these initiatives to really benefit more farmers. I think, for example, you look at Purchase for Progress, the associative grain project that I talked about, and I visited some of these, and you see these tremendous structures that they have and processing equipment, and you see how they received a lot of things from different international cooperation agencies, and I know that they're doing some good work, and I see that they have a good amount of sales, but I have yet to see a good cost-benefit analysis to say, okay, you know, this was really, we have achieved so much more benefits than it cost us, and so it's feasible to talk about expanding this to many more producer groups. We don't have that yet. So I worry about the scalability of these initiatives. And also when we talk about scalability, I worry about something that I think it was Monica that said yesterday about, or one of my colleagues, that, you know, how do we get the least developed, the most vulnerable to be able to participate in these kinds of programs? Now, how can we increase our scale to be able to reach those who are at the end of the curve? And next on sustainability, going back to Ambassador Nacio's comment on the immediate development gratification. And I wholeheartedly agree, for example, with Monica's comment yesterday that you need at least 3 production cycles to be able to see a more sustainable change in producer activities and in farmer outcomes. And so I'm very concerned about sustainability in those terms. I'm also extremely concerned about sustainability in terms of who takes over when the project ends. We see a lot of times very little linkage between projects and permanent structures, projects and extension services, very fragile extension services in the region. And so, you know, I'm very concerned about sustainability of a lot of these projects. When we talk about the cocoa project, for example, in El Salvador, I'm very concerned about sustainability in that sense because you're starting you're going to expand the sector very quickly, and I don't think we have that institutional framework. We're not even close to having an institutional framework that would permit us to continue supporting the sector once this project ends, despite the fact that it is a multi-year project. What are some good policies for positive impact? Because in the end, programs and projects can do a lot, but they have to operate within a good policy environment. And if the policy environment is not good, this is not going to be sustainable either. You have to get the policies right as well. And so what are some of the things that we've seen that can really move ahead in terms of rural development? For example, good road infrastructure, good access to basic services. These kinds of investments can spur along economic activity, people's access to education, people's access to markets, people's access to new kinds of activities, not only agriculture, in these rural areas. So we've seen concretely where families that have better road access, that have more access to basic services, are better off economically. So we know that that works. Extension services, here I go back to the idea that it's how important it is to link these short and medium-term projects with permanent extension services, although the extension services coverage is very low. Another important thing that government can provide is kind of an institutional regulatory framework in terms of quality standards. We have de facto standards that are private standards in El Salvador and a lot of these countries simply because we don't have public standards. And so you have farmers who have to comply with 2 or 3 or 4 different standards from different buyers, and so they have to make adjustments for each of their buyers, and that can be complicated, particularly when we're talking about small-scale farmers and small-scale packers. So it'd be very convenient to have uniform quality standards. Animal and plant health is also extremely important, and it's something that I think that kind of is forgotten until we have a problem. And so I think that we need to make sure that those animal and plant health programs are strong enough for, particularly when we talk about expanding into new crop areas, more diversified production. Compensation for environmental services and other related environmental programs. We talk about the importance of water harvesting. We talk about the importance of soil conservation. When you look at the dry corridor in Central America, much of that is hillsides. And a great portion of that is dedicated to basic grain production without conservation measures. And so until we start to resolve that difficulty, we're not going to reduce the vulnerability of those families and improve their capacity to confront droughts that are going to be increasingly present in the region. And finally, incentives for productive land ownership, not only for current farmers, but also when we talk about young people, we know that young people, we have experience in El Salvador that young people will go back to farming if it's a different kind of agriculture, if it's more modern, more intensive, more technological, and if they can make money. Those two things have to be there. But they also need access to land. So how are we going to get them access to land as all these older farmers are leaving the profession and their families may not be too willing to get rid of the land? So I think we have to be very diligent in looking at how our land markets work and make sure that we are using land in a productive and sustainable fashion as much as possible in the region. And how can institutions be more effective? I wanted to mention 3 points. Something that we have not mentioned here is corruption. I think we kind of feel like that's kind of out of our area, so we don't talk about it too much, but it is extremely important. And that's part of when we talk about accountability and we talk about transparency in these initiatives. So that would only spur along more the environment to incentivize good private sector investment. Multi-stakeholder participation in governance. We had Senor Escobar from Guatemala spoke about that governance starts with social consensus, and that's very true. And the other benefit from having more participation in governance is it's more permanent, more stable when you have more actors involved, when you don't have just the government making these decisions. So I think that's an important point. And the orientation towards the long term. Going back to the idea that we really need to find mechanisms to keep on saying to the people who fund us at the OMB, as was mentioned yesterday, you know, that it takes time. You have to find a way to get a longer term perspective when you're looking at development. And finally, how to create an enabling environment. Another thing that we haven't talked about much at this summit is security. But I think I welcomed Representative Granger's comments that people don't want to live where it's not safe. And she's absolutely right. So I think we need to keep that in mind. It's not our area of expertise, but I think we need to make sure that we understand that. And that that has to be really the highest priority right now for the region, particularly when we talk about not just migration. Children migration for Central America is not the problem, it's the symptom. The problem is security. And so I think that we need to be very conscious of that. The stable economic and political environment. Businesses don't want to invest when they don't have at least some measure of stability and they're not sure about what's going to be going on. Reducing bureaucracy. We talk about the costs of bringing shipments from one end of Central America to the other as being extremely high, or exporting outside of the region. But it's not only that, it's also getting through your municipal permits, through your environmental permits. All different kinds of ways to reduce bureaucracy would be a tremendous benefit to those who are looking to grow their businesses in Central America. Don't mess with markets. That seemed to be an old recipe that we've kind of been forgetting sometimes recently in the past few years in some of the countries in Central America. But we see that there are a lot better ways to have focused interventions to help those who are most vulnerable instead of messing with prices throughout the market. And finally, effective public-private sector and civil sector dialogue. We see a lot of initiatives. In El Salvador, we have a lot of things that, oh yeah, the government is listening, the government is listening. They're listening, but they're not hearing. They're not taking that into account. I think we need to see that dialogue is not just say, okay, I heard you. Dialogue is, yeah, you know, you're right. Let's find a way where we can incorporate your concerns and your needs into what we're doing. Yeah, and that's dialogue. And that's something that in El Salvador is still very deficient. And those are just some quick ideas. I hope I can kind of bring together a lot of elements from what we've seen over the past couple of days. And I really am I'm optimistic. I think that we have a tremendous opportunity because of the crisis to be able to focus more attention on the ways that we can help our rural population in Central America move forward. Thank you very much.
Amy, thank you so much. Dr. Knight, your reaction to all of this?
Good morning. First of all, thank you very much for the invitation to come to this very stimulating, very fruitful meeting. I've learned quite a bit. Many interventions have emphasized that Central America, and particularly Guatemala, El Salvador, and Honduras, have a great opportunity at this time. I share that opportunity. I share that optimism. We've heard about several stories of success, and I can't stop comparing present Central America with the Central America that existed 40, 50 years ago, or even longer, when Central American countries were classified as banana republics, or as countries that depended on coffee, bananas, sugar. We have now much more diversified economies with very dynamic, non-traditional agricultural exports, tourism, exports of services, exports of light industry, sometimes quite sophisticated in technological terms. We have traditional exports like coffee that have developed, have become much more sophisticated as well, with organic or gourmet type, as the experience of coffee demonstrates. We have many examples of partnerships, private, public, NGOs, with international cooperation as well. Innovative projects involving women, young people. We have some examples of value chains at different degrees, with different degrees of development. And Ricardo Santa Cruz has demonstrated how all this can also be institutionalized in a certain way with strong private institutions. Amy has also demonstrated how different projects can be successful, and as well has identified some of the limitations. And perhaps just as positive or as hopeful, we had this roundtable of producers, association producers, which for me really opened up a new world of what the prospects are in Central America. But as Amy said, we also need to evaluate the impact of projects with a long-term perspective. And she also mentioned we have to take into account policies. It's not only here a question of projects. And we need to think in terms of sustained long-term development. So, in spite of all this progress, at the same time, one looks at certain indicators, and they were mentioned here at this meeting. An increase in poverty in Guatemala and Honduras in recent years. In El Salvador, poverty has fallen, but I would assign that basically to partly focused social policies and not to a reduction of poverty resulting from sustained economic growth and employment. So we really have serious problems as well. So we have a combination here of quite successful projects, good prospects, but what I would call an enabling environment which still isn't sufficient to be able to push forward all these efforts, to really increase the scale and the long-term success of all of these efforts. And I think that enabling environment, which so rightfully was included as an agenda, part of the agenda, covers both specific policies and also the context in which successful, productive, private efforts must take place. And I would like to try to identify in a very tentative and not exhaustive way at least 3 factors which I think could contribute to a more favorable enabling environment. First one, and it hasn't been mentioned here, or it has been mentioned once, the macroeconomic policy and public administration, that particular issue. Second, an inclusive strategy. And third, political legitimacy. Regarding the macroeconomic or policy and public administration, I would like to stress 3 factors in particular, quickly, which have not favored the scaling up. First, an exchange rate regime in all 3 countries that by fixing the rates to the US dollar has favored an exchange rate appreciation in practice. This has harmed exports or export prospects. It has favored imports consumed by urban sectors. It has hurt domestic production, especially foodstuffs in rural areas. Somebody mentioned the problems of low returns and high risks in rural areas. I think part of those low returns have to do with an appreciated exchange rate. And it impairs the growth of rural tourism and of other services. This obviously must be subject to a greater discussion, but I think that's an important issue in Central America. Second, another macroeconomic variable is the question of public revenue. This has not been mentioned. There was even a question trying to assume off the importance of resources. I think this is absolutely crucial. I'm a former Minister of Finance, so I can't avoid making that comment. But here it's quite obvious that Central American states do not have the financial capacity to finance public goods, a series of public goods. And in the case of agriculture, I think the issue of research in particular has been mentioned here as something that is not covered to any significant extent by the public sectors in Central America. There's a third dimension here within this set of constraints, that is the public administration. I believe public administration in these Central American countries, Costa Rica is a different question, are extremely weak. It's true we need policies. Amy identified very useful policies, very important policies, infrastructure and extension services, standards. But the public administration in these three countries not always have the capacity to really guarantee results, do not have the capacity to really orient public expenditure in a really impact-oriented way, or to implement strategies. Let's think in terms of these complex value chains where you have to involve larger actors, as Amy mentioned, with smaller associations. That requires a sophisticated public sector to be able to accompany that, to support it. I don't believe that exists at present in Central America. In the case of Guatemala, we have a particularly tragic example of extension services which were implemented by a past government, which involved a series of individuals that had nothing to do with agricultural or rural expertise. We have also the danger of public administrations being captured by special interests or by corruption. I mean, we obviously have examples in both Guatemala and Honduras the past year and a half. And I think there are also difficulties with these public administrations with dealing with conflicts on a sustainable basis, even though we heard yesterday also of very important efforts being made in Guatemala to deal with some of the basic or very big conflicts. But I think this is also another area where there isn't the long-term expertise of the Guatemalan or of the Central American public administrations. So one could say that scaling up could be favored by more flexible exchange rates, more resources, strengthening accountability, strengthened and accountable public administration. One of the things that has been mentioned in the Alliance for Prosperity is the issue of new laws of civil service. This is necessary, but it's not easy. Let's remember that in several the Central American countries, we have strong teachers' unions, strong health union workers, a tradition of clientelism, and even in this country, in the United States, it took 2 generations at the end of the 19th century, beginning of the 20th century, to be able to really have a solid civil service in the country at a federal level. So this is a long struggle. It is a titanic political problem to have really effective bureaucracies in Central America. And I think that perspective should be taken into account and not just consider that by changing the law, we'll be able to improve the efficiency of the public sector. There's a second set of factors that could also favor scaling up in a more inclusive way. And this is not only social, it is also legal. And I would like to stress the legal dimension, and in particular, to have an effective rule of law, to have law applied equally to all. And we have some progress in that sense in Guatemala recently. And I think it's absolutely essential. It implies greater security for citizens, for business, to the extent that we have actual enforcement and sanctions. There is greater possibilities of having not only investment, but also facing all this insecurity, reducing conflicts, reducing corruption. It is not easy, again. It requires political will, but we have progress recently. Guatemala, supported by international cooperation, and Honduras partly. But here again, I would stress that this is a political challenge rather than one of financial aid. And the other ingredient in terms of favoring inclusion is having an ambitious social policy. And Pamela Anderson already yesterday identified some of the crucial components of that challenge, in particular attention to vulnerable populations. She mentioned attention to children and nutrition, to youth with access to assets, markets, training. I would stress the issue of scholarships. With the long-term perspective, 25 years was mentioned yesterday. I would really think a massive program of scholarships, and not only MAs and PhDs, BAs, BScs, for Central Americans, not from the elite, would have a tremendous impact. I had the privilege of studying abroad. I know what that means. And I think that could have a really long-term important impact in Central America. Pamela also mentioned the question of the issue of women with empowerment and education. So there are these three vulnerable sectors. I would add a fourth one, being a Guatemalan, and that's the indigenous population, which, as you all know, it's subject to discrimination, to racism. That requires a particularly solid policy in terms of nutrition, health, education, and also taking into account the multicultural dimension of Guatemala. Ricardo Santa Cruz also mentioned the issue of the indigenous population in Guatemala. There is a third set of enabling factors, which is much more difficult to deal with, and this is the political legitimacy. Vinicio Cerezo will be dealing with I imagine, some of the political challenges in Central America. But taking advantage of these opportunities with a long-term perspective is absolutely crucial in that political dimension. And Congresswoman Kay Granger yesterday mentioned two dimensions which are particularly important. One, this long-term perspective, and the other, the question of partnerships. I would interpret partnerships as partnerships at a national level. And here I agree with Amy in the need for having social pacts, implicit or explicit social pacts. It requires agreements, it requires very important, difficult negotiations. It's not an issue of consensus. I don't think we can reach consensus in Central American countries, but that does imply reaching certain basic agreements. And moving from considering ourselves sometimes as enemies to being more as adversaries, to having a discussion in terms of not, as I say, enemies, which sometimes marks the dialogues that we have as a result of our history of wars and conflict. This also requires an effective state, and it's not only the executive, it's the judicial, it's the legislative that can implement the agreements, accountable, as Amy mentioned. But I would also say that this requires new political actors in these Central American countries, subject to the rule of law, accountable, transparent. And I would emphasize in particular the need to involve women, youth, and indigenous people as part of this new political class that should conduct this process in Central America. We can't go on with the same political class in Central America. This enabling environment requires a big push, and this must come from new actors in particular. So taking advantages of these opportunities in Central America is a tremendous political challenge. Thank you very much.
Dr. Knight, thank you so much. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all of the members of the panels for their presentations. Now it's an opportunity for us to hear from you. We had set up this format so it would provide an opportunity for not only for people to speak to you, but for all of you to interact with people on the panel. So please take advantage of this opportunity.
Yes, good morning. Thank you all for your very insightful remarks. I think you've stimulated a lot of thought. I wanted to ask your thoughts on another set of policies that help create an enabling environment, and that's the donor policies. You've touched on some of these, particularly several of you mentioned the need to rethink extremely short-term financing, the typical 24-month to 36-month development project financing, which we, as an implementer, we can tell you does not begin to create a sustainable process when we're talking about incipient processes. And Amy, as an implementer in one of the major national level projects you mentioned, Lutheran World Relief is precisely concerned about every one of those issues you mentioned. I think this is not news to us that there are weaknesses in our implementation models, and yet many of those are trade-offs because we need to try to meet donor policies, which are frequently, they cap certain categories of funding completely arbitrarily with no regard to actual cost structures of the implementers or without any real thought in our minds. I'm sure someone has thought about it, but with no real regard to the realities of implementing. And so, and also, I think you mentioned the need for impact evaluation, and yet most donors are very interested in outputs and not impact. And so we get the sense, of course, that the Technical Evaluation Committee is sort of dividing the dollars by number of participants, and that's about as far as some of these go. I know that's not true, but yet when you look at the winning proposals versus the losing ones, it's very, very difficult. Our agency historically has preferred a very high-touch approach, multiple crop cycles, follow-up monitoring, mentoring of producers in new incipient value chains, and yet the reality of today is that most donor policies do not favor that type of proposal in what is in Central America an extremely competitive funding environment. So I'd just be interested in hearing if you all have any thoughts on some of those comments. Thank you.
Amy?
Yeah, I agree. Really, and I'm not sure what the key is to changing that. I think that the comments of Ms. Ellis from AID yesterday were, I think, were refreshing in the sense that it seems like they're starting to really have a better grasp on the need for a longer-term perspective from the donor community, from the cooperation community. When they just talked about Plan Colombia, and they recognized that they needed 15 years in Colombia to see changes. So I think that it'll be very important to see how that plays out when we look at it in terms of the Alliance for Prosperity with the Northern Triangle in the United States. But it's not just cooperation that needs to have a longer-term perspective. It's not our national governments. Our countries need to have a longer perspective. We're so tied to the political cycle and to annual budgets that we lose that. We lose the longer-term perspective, and I welcome the comments that my colleague gave at the end when he talked about the need for a longer-term, a more, at least some fundamental agreements about where we want our countries to go. We don't have to agree on everything, but we have to have at least a general basic agreement on where we want to see our country go, and I think that could be extremely helpful. Now, as I say that coming from the country which is probably one of the most polarized in Latin America, if not maybe even in the world, and so that's very difficult, and unfortunately I can't really say that I have the solution for that, except for some new leaders who begin to have a different perspective and who can look beyond their own political benefit and ideological constraints to look at longer-term development for the country.
I think part of it has to do with us taking on some responsibility in terms of being able to educate senior government and policymakers. Dr. Morano and I were both undersecretaries, and having testified in front of Congress every year, part of their response, of course, is, what have you done for me lately? They're very motivated in terms of going back to their constituents, who are us, people in this room, and talking about what they have been able to accomplish. And so part of it is on us to continue to educate them about that there needs to be a longer period of time in terms of being able to assess progress, implementation, and those types of things. And so we too have some responsibility in terms of influencing the dynamics of the way things currently exist. Other questions?
Okay, thank you. So again, I appreciate the great insights. As a native from Central America, I'm thinking about now our role as a higher education institution, and now our colleagues introduced yesterday an interesting and desirable term, accountability. I think it's time for us to work with this critical component, but at the same time, we have to keep in mind the realities of some communities in Guatemala, like our paisanos from Guatemala share in the Cochubatanes. I wonder to what extent we can use, for example, randomized control trial studies there when people are dying because no rain, no this, no that. But I think that for us as a higher education institution, we have a great opportunity to be part of this. We have a lot of homework to do to try to refine good, reliable, valid instruments so we can comply with this important component you mentioned yesterday, the accountability. And I think that hopefully in the near future we can have better to offer. I'm also wondering about the sustainability, the scalability, because I think that once we identify good projects, it's time for us to be able to disseminate those projects among other communities. Thank you. Jorge.
Jose? There was someone in. Jose, you had a question?
Yes, Jose. You're working? Yeah. Jose Artiga with the Share Foundation. I just want to ask a question about the Central Americans that are no longer in Central America. You know, they are farmers, but somehow the conditions are pushing them north. And now we have, you know, a big population of Central Americans, now children, here in the United States. Overnight, they are not players anymore, you know, and they used to be the leaders, they used to be, you know, the engines of the community. How do you see the Central Americans in the United States being connected or continuing to play in a role? And the projections, you know, and perhaps the universities might help us and see how Central America would look like in the next 20 years with half of the population in the United States and half of the population down there.
Excellent question. Members of the panel?
I think we have a lot of opportunities that are not being well channeled or well organized. I think there were some efforts. There have been efforts to have a more productive use of remittances, but I think that kind of naturally occurs. I think it's maybe better to look at how we can facilitate investments by the hermanos lejanos in El Salvador or in Guatemala and Honduras. But I think that they are still fairly well tied to their countries. And the reason that more money doesn't come down is because it's not a good environment for investment. And so I think there could be some mechanisms to, help them out. The way that you facilitate investment from foreign investors, they don't look at those smaller scale investors. They look at those that are going to spend $3, $4, $5, $10 million, but how do you attract those medium-sized investments into the country from typically Central Americans who live outside the country? And I think that could be an area where the investment promotion offices perhaps could work a little bit better, and for the smaller scale investors to be able to facilitate things for them, because we know that bureaucracy is difficult. And so if you're going to have an investment of $10,000 and an investment of $1 million, those costs of bureaucracy are the same for you. And so it makes a much higher percentage of your costs when you're talking about a smaller scale investment. And so I think that could be something, that might be one of the options to be able to help them along.
Dr. Knight.
Yes, I think Ireland should be analyzed as a reference. Ireland had 8 million population at mid-19th century. Now it has 4. There probably is a greater amount of Irish people outside of Ireland than in Ireland. And I think that it has had obviously a tremendous cost in terms of a brain drain, but it has also allowed Ireland to become much more linked to the international economy. And I think those links, we can already begin to see them in the case of Central America, through all types of business contacts. Apart from remittances, there is another factor that one can see practically every day or when one travels. I believe that most of the tourism that's entering Guatemala, Salvador, and Honduras is originally Guatemalan, Salvadorian, and Honduras, but living in the States or in North America. So there's also that impact. And it's a very steady type of tourism, one type of tourism that's not so vulnerable to political events in particular. So I think that should be taken into account. And then there's another, I would say, cultural factor, which is also important. The question of rule of law. I think there's an important behavioral change that takes place in that sense. And one can see it in terms of Guatemalans who live in the States and who respect the law and go back to Guatemala and don't do it. But I think there is a process there that can go on and gradually strengthen through family ties to adopt some of those values. I'm not implying with that all the North American values should be adopted by Guatemalans or Central Americans, but I think there are certain types of those values, like the one of rule of law, that is particularly important.
Senator Cruz, you want to make a short comment?
I would like to add something. I think we can identify several opportunities working in alliances between people living legally in the United States and their families in our countries. I think that the people living in the United States has horizonte, how you say it?
Horizon.
Yeah, horizon, yeah. And they know new business. And some of them can be used in our countries. Yeah? And their families had the opportunity to receive the remesas. Yeah? But also we need more financial services in the rural areas in our countries.
Dean Vernegas, I think you're going to be our last questioner.
And maybe it's not necessarily a question, but a comment. I think that we heard yesterday and today a lot about education. We need to educate, we need to educate, we need to educate. And one of the lingering thoughts I have is, where is the discussion on learning? Because we can learn from these communities a lot that we just dismiss. I believe, and I was talking to you about, there is nothing more innovative and creative than basic survival. And if we were able to tap into the energy, the desire, the will, las ganas of many of these people, we could be doing something. And I have seen too many efforts from policy or NGOs or even universities where they have the answer. So let me teach you, let me educate you on what it is. And we don't take enough time to learn. Para los que hablan español, es la diferencia entre educar, entrenar y en verdad querer aprender. Y mi mensaje es que muchas veces no le damos el crédito a todos los miembros de estas comunidades desfavorecidas en lo que ellos tienen que enseñarnos al resto del mundo. Y yo creo que parte del diálogo tiene que ser en ese espacio de aprendizaje y no tanto de enseñanza. Thank you.
Please join me in thanking the panel once again.
Just a little gift and a picture. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, really. I took copious notes of yours. Thank you, Ambassador. Well done. Okay, well, as our last presentation, if you will, it is a great pleasure and honor for me to introduce to you former President of Guatemala, Vinicio Cerezo. He will bring us some closing comments and perspectives. President Cerezo served as President of Guatemala from 1986 to 1991. He was the first civilian president of the modern democratic era, following 15 years of military rule in Guatemala. Guatemala had experienced constant and violent political turmoil since the 1940s. And when President Cerezo took office, the inflation rate in Guatemala was almost 60%, unemployment close to 50%, and a foreign debt of $2.3 billion. There was social disequilibrium produced through a fragmented and polarized society. 100,000 people, civilians, had been killed by terrorists. 250,000 had gone into exile, and 40,000 of those were living in refugee camps in Mexico. When President Cerezo took over, it was really transformational for Guatemala. He actually survived 2 attempted coups. And perhaps what he's most known for is that he contributes significantly, uniquely, to the peace process in Central America. He promoted the Proceso de Esquipulas, a process whereby the 5 presidents of Central American countries agreed to forge economic collaboration and develop a structure for the peaceful resolution of conflicts in the region. These efforts, which were led truly by President Cerezo, culminated in the signing of the Acuerdo de Paz de Esquipulas in August of 1987, which was signed in Guatemala City. For this effort, the President of Costa Rica, Oscar Arias, received the Nobel Peace Prize. And there's a lot of people who think that perhaps President Cerezo should have also shared in that Nobel Peace Prize, since he started that whole effort. So please help me give a warm Texas welcome to Presidente Cerezo de Guatemala.
Okay. Well, you can see it will be very difficult. I was trying to sleep last night, and it was very difficult for me because I have 2 days listening a big amount of realities, a big amount of comments, and big amount of political strategies to resolve the most important problems we are suffering at this moment in Guatemala and in Central America. And then I decided that I am going to make a brief only to avoid repeat all the very smart proposals we have listened in this meeting. It's really very important. It is very important, really very important for me to come here and be in agreement of all the proposals I have listened, because the strategies and the measures you have proposed give me the confidence that we are in the right path to confront the problems we are living for. And now I am very happy because I could come and participate at this refreshing meeting organized by the Borlaug Institute. It is very important for me because we have talked about the reality we are living in our countries in Central America, and that we have to change, and if we want to maintain the viability of those countries, giving the people the opportunity to live in better conditions and be part of the society. It is refreshing because there is no discussion about the existence of poverty between our people, but also that it's possible to change this reality if we implement the right strategies to do it. Coming here is very refreshing, I said, because we realize that this is possible to help with technical assistance, advice, and organization that the people on the country feel, and reduce the poverty in the rural areas, while it is possible to implement a global strategy to change that reality. There are beautiful and nice examples in how the cooperatives have improved the way of life of the people in the countryside, and that is true that agriculture is always good to support the welfare, the nutrition, and the incomes of the farmers, while a total change becomes. The figures of the statistics show us that poverty and margination have become a real obstacle for progress in our societies, because an increasing majority of the population have suffered in a lack of health, education, and opportunities, and they won't be able to be part of the development we need to improve our future. But in the other side, I found in this meeting the willingness and the compromise to work to change that reality. And that it's why I'm going to talk about some example of change we have gotten, because we will give us the confidence that we can do it in the future. And that's why I would like to remember in few words some facts of our history. Like have said before, 30 years ago, the Central Americans showed the capacity to change the paths of their history when, through the agreements of Esquipulas I and Esquipulas II, stopped the war, established the democracy, and promote the regional integration despite the Cold War, with a lot of success. And this was possibly because all together, work in favor of the right strategy to get it. That important success is a very good example that if we are in agreement and work in the same direction, we are able to do what we want to do. But we have some problems that we have to confront and overcome. Change the direction in which society is going means change many things, means change attitudes of different actors, the behavior of the administration, change some laws and procedures, and this means political power. And like Moises Nadim says in his book, The End of the Power, the essence of politics is power. The essence of power is politics. But one of the reasons we are confronting this reality is because the crisis of politics in our countries. Politicians have failed in decision-making about those problems, reason why they have lost prestige and power, And it is why the society had to push them in many ways to enforce them to take the right decisions they had to. Another experience we have to talk about, and is the experience of what happens in Guatemala the last year and how provoke the same kind of movement in other countries in Central America, because, like you know, we were living a disgusting case of governmental corruption that was eroding the confidence of the people in the system and the capacity of the administration to lead the country and confront and resolve our problems. A coalition of different sectors of our society, the NGOs like Esquipola's Foundation, the United Nations Commission Against Corruption and Organized Crime, the National Prosecutor of Guatemala, the American Ambassador, and especially the civil movement at the Plaza Central of the young people have made an historical change in Guatemala in favor of the state of law and enforcing the politicians to make the right political decisions. This coalition of citizens and institutions changed the government, elect a new president, and open the opportunities for the to change many things if the Guatemalans continue working in the same way. This is politics, but new kind of politics. Because that's why my conviction is that we have to do politics to create power to change the facts we are talking about poverty and development. But a new kind of politics, the politics of open discussions with the elites, the private entrepreneurs, the administration, looking for agreements to put all together, like Mr. Martinez from Salvador and my friend Colombian George Vanegas have said in the development of a strategy of integrated efforts between the different sectors who have to make decisions about the development. It is an effort for consultation with all the sectors of our countries to change our history all the way. And also, that politics have to have a regional and also integrated vision looking for better use of resources and solutions. A regional vision. It is very important for us. You know, now we have to talk about and resolve the problems of 3 countries in the north part of Central America. But we need to have a regional vision if we really want to have the opportunities to get the resources and the possibilities to change our countries. This is our dream. And the question we have to make too in this community we are living in is, will it be possible that we all together could go in the same direction for make a more fair society with equity for all, integrated and participative, where the richness we have could be shared by all in consequence of his work and his efforts? My feeling is that we are at the right moment to do a movement for a change. A movement in favor of change, because we could have the support of the society, the United States of America, and the international community for do that. I think that is the right time to make a new alliance for the progress with the United States. It's the right moment to make it, because both the Central Americans and the United States of America need it in this moment for security reasons and social reasons. Like the Constitution of the United States of America says, we, the people, can do the change, and we will do it. Thank you very much.
Truly inspirational words from President Cerezo. It's a wonderful way to to come to closure on this summit. I wanted to first and foremost thank all of you for having come, some of you a long way, to join us here for this last couple of days. I'd like to thank really all of the distinguished speakers that we've had and presenters, panelists, for their participation, their thoughts or ideas, all the folks who ask questions, whether formally through the Q&A sessions or even through our various networking opportunities during the breaks and meals and so forth. I'd also like to thank the U.S. Agency for International Development. I don't know if our AID friends are still here or not. I think they probably left already, but and Congresswoman Granger. We cannot do a lot of the things that we're needing to do without their support, and we thank them for their willingness to participate in this forum. And I think we all were pleasantly gratified, if you will, by the comments that they made, both USAID and Congresswoman Granger. I'd like to thank also my colleagues from Texas A&M University System who are here from various colleges and from various universities within the system, and this in different institutes and institutions for coming here and supporting this effort, because truly the Borlaug Institute is trying to be the glue or the magnet that brings all of us together for these kinds of activities. So I want to thank you for your support and your camaraderie. And last but not least, I'd like to thank Valerie Weber, who is the organizer of this fantastic summit. She did all the logistics, and from the hotel to the meals and all of the various details that are innumerable that she navigated through effortlessly, I would say, and expertly. And finally, my Borlaug Institute team. They are just an incredible group of professionals that really are responsible for the great things that happen through the Borlaug Institute. Dr. Roger Norton, who was a principal leader in bringing a lot of you together as participants, Ambassador Eric Bost, Dr. Leo Lombardini, Julie Borlaug, who unfortunately could not be here with us, but she helped a lot in the planning efforts. Emily Monroe and Eric Brenner and Lisa Bloom, who did a lot of the heavy lifting here in the last couple of days. And Shelby Graves, a young woman who, she had to leave a little early because she's studying for finals. So, but she's, I think, a great example of the kind of energy and enthusiasm and intelligence that we see in this next generation, these millennials that are all over the world, in the region, in the United States, everywhere, that want to really make a difference. They want to do things better, and they want to do things together, and they want to do things that help this planet of ours. So we love having people like that in our group. Dr. Mike McWhorter and Keith Cole, also from our Borlaug Institute team, who are here to support and also to engage with all of you. So with all of that said, I just want to give you my thanks, my gratitude from the bottom of my heart for having stuck through this day and a half, for having come here and taken time out of your summer to be with us and help us. The next steps are such that we will be drafting a document of observations, challenges, if you will, some lessons learned examples that we have heard from several of you throughout the conference, and then most importantly, the recommendations that we wish to make, not only on what should be done, but how, because that's really the key right there. I think a lot of us have seen the kinds of things that we all agree need to be done, but how to do them, that's the real trick. And we intend to provide that to both Congresswoman Granger, USAID, the donor community at large, to see if we can maybe effect a little bit of an influence on their thought process as they move forward with their plans for the region. So with that said, thank you so much. I hope that you enjoyed your time here in Fort Worth, Texas. I'm not sure when we'll have another one of these summits, but thank you so much for your participation, and have a safe trip home.